Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Grow IT podcast. And today I have Brett Riley, who is I'll tell you, if you're in IT and you like to laugh, you're gonna love this. He is the CEO founder of IT Army, and IT Army is basically going to revolutionize the way that IT services are delivered to businesses. And I know that gets said a lot, but they are on a unbelievable path to growth, which I love, as everyone knows, love talking about. That's why it's the Grow IT podcast. But without stealing the show, Brett, I'd like to welcome you to the Grow IT podcast.
No, thanks, Terrence. Uh, really enjoyed our few conversations we've had,
Yeah.
and this could be the start of a burgeoning friendship across the pond. It's really good to chat to you.
Well, without a doubt, we've had some fun conversations offline, and I'm sure this one will be just as lively and entertaining. So, why don't you just open things up and tell us a little bit about your background and your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, sure. I'm a farm boy from South Africa in the Natal Midlands of South Africa, so quite an English part of South Africa. I grew up on horse racing studs, believe it or not.
Hmm.
Trained racehorses with my father until I was 27. Um, Business ambition and an entrepreneurial spirit has always been something that has pretty much been a part of my makeup from an early childhood. And Yeah, I think my ambition and his ambition as a family business didn't really match. So I thought I'd come over to the UK and get involved in technology or banking. Banking wasn't doing that great at the time. It was around about when we had the unfortunate events in New York with the Twin
2007,
Towers going down.
2008 type of,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and basically, it. So I got into IT and taking into consideration that I couldn't even fax because I was a farm boy at the time. Using faxes wasn't really a great choice. But what I could do was sell. So and joined an organization called Action Computers and sold from a catalog because Google and search engines and stuff weren't that great. And in actual fact, Action was bought by Insight, which is a massive
Oh yeah,
brand.
in Arizona,
Yeah,
I think.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and that's how Insight started in the UK and
No
grew
kidding.
its international operations. And within 6 months, I experienced my first acquisition against, which was Insight buying us, and then spent the next 15, 16 years in a managed services organization, and then joined a company called Kelway to grow out their managed services and global professional services propositions, and was quite successful there. And then bought by another great American organization called CDW.
Oh yeah.
So that's been my history. But phenomenal experience in at Kelway, buying companies and integrating sales teams and growing professional services and managed services, and then the great behemoth, which was CDW, coming in and then growing out our business from an international perspective, and just the caliber of customers, the LinkedIn's, the BlackRocks, the you name it. They pretty much had that Rolodeck of great organizations that we could get our teeth into, expand into Europe and Asia Pac. And then the idea of IT Army came from the meetings that I was having in New York, and what we were looking to do with people and what was going on in the gig economy and freelancer economy and tech in itself. And then, yeah, that's where it started in New York.
So let me ask you before we, and obviously we're going to talk about IT Army, but it's you've had this roller coaster. It seems of you go and work for one firm, then they get acquired, and then you go work for another, and they get acquired. There's a lot of M&A that's kind of weaved in your career. Is
Yeah,
that accurate?
I think I've experienced 13 in total.
Wow.
And so that's two, and in a short period of time. So the aggressive growth of Kelway at the time, the CEO at the time is a guy by the name of Phil Doy. So if you Google him, you'll see that he's back at it. He's now the CEO and chairman of Box, which is a VAR value-added reseller based out of the UK, and
Mm-hmm.
they've just bought another organization called Total Computers. So if you're interested in the UK market, well, then you'll see that that's happening. I mean, he was the architect of the Kelway story and then the sellout to CDW. But we
Hmm.
bought 7 or 8 companies at the time,
Wow.
and it was phenomenal growth. Like we went from 80 million to 700 million in 7 years pounds. So that's what just on $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And now the organization is at 1.5, 1.6 billion. The CDW UK element on its own, and obviously, what CDW did was push all of that great client base through Calway or the CDW entity, and then expanded into Asia Pac and followed their customers because they recognized that they were losing around about 7 to 8 billions worth of business a year just outside of the US because CDW was so strong North America, but the rest of the world they weren't. So Calway was the first acquisition, and then that's how they grew the business out. So I experienced all of that. So different management teams, different approaches, different cultures, and then also with that, seeing the gaps in the market at large organization scale of how. Oops, shocks! What happened? Don't know what happened there.
You're okay.
You there? Sorry, I lost
Yep.
you there.
Nope. You're good.
I can't see you.
That's okay. It's still good.
Oh, okay,
It,
cool.
and
Yeah,
I'll tell you too. Just we'll edit this part out. It records on each of our sides. So even if
oh,
it blurs, I should have told you at the beginning. Not a
oh,
big
okay,
deal. In
sorry.
fact, let me just.
Sorry,
I want to
Terrence.
see what
All right, yeah.
timestamp we're at right now, just so I can.
Yeah.
Okay, 6.
It
Okay, got it.
seems something did weird. The teams all of a sudden got
You're
involved.
good. Yeah. So even if you see it blurry or anything, you're good.
Yes. Okay. So I think I experienced what was good and bad in acquisitions, and then also in growing services at a global level quite quickly. And we gained a lot of experience from that, from that, and then a lot of those lessons I've brought into trying to scale this business as well, just around people management and expectation and building a team. So how do you choose people, and how do you bring them into your culture, and what's good and bad, and then and I think to a large extent we've got that pretty right with IT Army.
So tell me about right. So
Yeah,
again, now it makes sense, right? When you go through a career when you have a lot of M&A involved and a lot of like you see the clash of cultures, right? Or it's
mm,
easy for being in the boardroom and saying, hey, we're going to acquire this piece and implement it here, but there's people involved, right? And
yeah,
so anytime you start to mesh and meld people,
yeah,
different cultures, different company cultures, different country cultures, right? And so, a lot of that background experience you have makes a lot of sense when you start talking about why founded IT Army. And really, that's what I want to talk about. Let's talk
yeah,
about the core offer of IT Army. What is it?
yeah. So we deliver IT managed services and professional services for medium to large size organizations in 167 countries with around about 2,500 engineers. So, and that's predominantly, it started with level 2 networking and data center engineers. So wherever there's change with organizations, so an organization like Adidas or Shell, where they're rolling out networking, SD-WAN, and one of the biggest problems is that organizations don't have the scale or the capability from a people perspective to actually implement those technologies and then support them. And it was a massive gap in the market because organizations had to go through a bloated chain effect or bloated chain or supply chain in order to get to those great individuals. Extra cost, bad service, convoluted communication structures. And what we've pretty much done is focused on disseminating that and then flattening both the cost structure, access to tech, and then the service. And we do that through our technology. So we've built a SaaS platform that organizations can hook into, create their own market, deliver through us, or add extra supplies to their chain as well. So that's always been the strategy from the outset, is to use technology to be able to for organizations to hook in, to be able to really access that great talent, local talent, wherever it is in the world, and then we help deliver that. Yeah,
And so is that I mean, again, the ability to find talent, right, is again, that's probably the pain point, right, that most of your clients are experiencing, and understandably so, right? I mean, you're
yeah,
not talking about low level type of roles here. You're talking about
yeah,
high level engineers, coding, anyone that's involved in T and
yeah,
IT, and that was I mean, I talked to plenty of founders and execs, and they all say the same thing. And so, if that's the
Yeah,
main point, where are they trying to get to? Like, how does
yeah.
IT Army help them
I
get
think the skills gap is a massive problem globally. Um, but it's time invested in trying to find these individuals that most
there?
organizations don't have. Then there's a few things that have changed in the world, and I'll talk a bit about fintech, which has accelerated this. But if you look at what's going on around the world, and as the world has become a much smaller place through fiber, through satellite, through whatever it is, you're having great talent leapfrog traditional educational paths to get to that knowledge base. So a kid that's 7, 8, 9 years old that's on an iPad, and you just see 3 year olds and how they're going through and they're playing games. And what happens is that at an early age, they start coding, they get involved in tech because they have access to data. And what will happen is that in all of these emerging economies, you've got great talent that's now starting to get access to data, to information, to education, and they're starting to code. They don't even have to go to universities. I mean, this is a thing that things like AI is accelerating the learning capability, the ability to actually engage with these individuals. And our job is to find those people and then expose them to the world to say, right, actually, in Kenya, there's a phenomenal DevOps individual that can actually deliver for you. And then what happens is that organizations, if they trust because obviously there's things around data and stuff depending on what vertical you're in, and Patriots law and all of that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to embrace that type of capability. But more and more organizations are asking for a global footprint of people that can be utilized on demand or on a consumption-based basis, and naturally it suits them because they can work different hours, they can work in hours and out of hours, and also because of the dollar. It's in their countries. $1 is, in some countries like Venezuela or Uganda or wherever it is, it's 50 to 1.
Yeah.
So the power of just $50 is an absolutely amazing thing. I mean, you pay someone in one of those third world countries $50 an hour, they'll walk through walls for you. So the service is exceptional. So that's what we've been doing. We've been finding, and then the other big thing is that if you look at North American organizations, if you look at European organizations, they have to, if they're big enough, move into emerging markets to gain market acquisition. They have to grow their top line revenue. They're hungry for resources. They're hungry to move into these new emerging markets, but they don't have the capability. They don't have the support. They don't have the technical. And so what we do is that we really accentuate that by managing their risk, providing them with good people to deliver that, ensure that the compliance, and then support it when it's there. So it's a low cost option for those organizations to get into those regions. And you see that quite a lot with especially the Silicon darlings, as they get developed, and then they go, okay, we're going to take our product to market, but then we've got a traditional distribution channel, and it becomes very cost inhibitive in order to break into a new market with their product because they don't have the headcount or the people to support that infrastructure. So, even for the great brands, I mean, we're busy training people on NVIDIA and Nutanix and all sorts all around the world, where they don't have, and even with their big money, don't have the people in country to actually support that infrastructure. So it's an interesting model, and an interesting business model, and it's an interesting operational model. But we've got it right, and I think that's the key thing. So we've got great use cases that we can talk to our customers about, and deliver it, and that's key.
And I'm going to get to those use cases in a
Yeah,
second. But one of the things I want to talk about is go back to, you talking about the availability of, education and information available
yeah,
to these third world countries, right? And I think in one of our conversations offline, we talked about, isn't Elon Musk South African?
he is.
Yeah. So,
I don't know where.
oh,
Depends on what side of crazy you want to be, but some people love him, some people hate him. But
regardless, right? I think more importantly is the Starlink company, right?
yeah,
And that ability when you talk about
yeah,
internet and having to build out a tremendous amount of infrastructure in these third world countries, but Starlink and the ability to have satellites is going to turn that on
transform.
like a light switch, the availability.
Absolutely. Yeah, very exciting. And I think that, you got to run cables, you got to run fiber, you got to run all of this infrastructure. Now, literally, you can take solar power, hook it up, have a Starlink, powers this Starlink. Yes, you can run some Cat 5 cabling and put some wireless access points and a few switches in that are all powered by the solar power in the facility, in a library in the middle of the bush, doesn't matter where. And then these kids can just rock up. And now in Africa, some kids will walk 2 hours to school and 2 hours back at night, that's how determined they are to learn. So, it really can become, for all of his eccentricities, and the technology empowers. And this is you only have
It's a
to look at
huge
the
resource
countries.
to tap into. I mean,
Massively
it's a
huge,
massive, and
very
even from our
exciting.
standpoint, I,
Yeah,
we just recently hired. I think I had mentioned that to you
yeah, you
from
did, yeah,
Durban in South Africa. A
yeah,
business development representative, and he is fantastic. And you
yeah,
talk about the value proposition. I mean, it's what I would have to pay someone of his caliber in the United States is probably 3 to 4x easily,
yeah,
easily,
yeah.
right?
And
So
there's the hunger and the hardship that people face, and then the I think, and look, I'm not advocating that outsourcing is everything, and going to other countries is everything. I'm not, by all means, but I'm just saying that what it will do for look, competition is good. It's only good for you, and the thing is that if you've got someone in another country that's prepared to put in a 7 or 8 hours or 9 hours, or and brilliance can only take you that far, but hard work, the extra 2 hours levels the playing field a hell of a lot. And I think that it's only good for Africa, and it's good for the environment, because fundamentally, if you look at all the countries around the world, where countries are rich, the population growth has stabilized. The ones that are poor is where it's exploding, and it's and there's extra pressure on the resources. So for me, technology for Africa is going to change the landscape, and it'll really change how the world sees Africa, and fundamentally, in the next 30 years, you're going to see a very different Africa, in my opinion.
totally agree.
So that's what I'm excited about.
Good. Well, I am too. And let's talk a little bit about success stories. And you had mentioned some of
Yeah,
the big names, one of which I have to correct you because over here in America we call it Adidas. I think you've said that to me before. I'm like,
Adidas.
Adidas,
Yeah,
what,
we say
correct, right? And
Adidas.
and I believe
Like
it's a German
Nike,
company,
Nike.
so we're the ones that are wrong. But of course, us Americans who
You're no
have
wrong
who
about
think
that.
everything
Yes.
revolves around us are
Yeah.
going sad and pronouncing it incorrectly, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
you've had some big names, some big success
Yeah.
stories with clients of the enterprise level, Fortune 500 type level. But
Yeah.
talk to me a little about some of those. Give me some examples of those success stories. And success takes a
Yeah.
different viewpoint for everybody. But
Yeah.
talk
I
us through
think.
some of those.
Yeah, I think it ties into how the culture of IT Army, and how the engineers are attached to us and how we deliver. Because for someone like the great telco AT&T that throws something over to you on a Monday and then expects an engineer in Gabon on a Friday, I mean, how do you manage that? How do you actually get to deliver a CCNA level 2 engineer with 6 to 10 years experience in Gabon to go and actually deliver a SD-WAN device, or get something installed? I mean, it's amazing to see the size of the network. You talk about MasterCard, Visa being one of them that we look after as well, um, and um, and the nature of what that looks like. And fundamentally, I think when we're looking at these large programs, and there's a host of other ones, their challenge is to find that engineer that's going to go to site for 2 hours and that's going to be there for 3 hours. And they want to be cost effective. They want to deliver the service, and a lot of them are driving technology into these countries, and they need the people to support them. So, for us, when you're doing, I think in one day, the other day, we did 350 engineering visits, and we didn't have one escalation. We had over 50 engineers on one site in one location in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And that was just amazing to see, the scale of what's going on and how it's working for these large organizations, and then seeing the response back is the other thing, the feedback we get. What a great engineer! What great attitude! Loved him. Please, can we use him again, or her again? shouldn't just say the hymns. There's loads of great ladies that
Mm-hmm.
are delivering work for us around the world. But that is what we're experiencing, and I think a lot of it's got to do with um, naturally, being paid on time, the culture, how they're treated, how we engage, how we manage them, our technology, so that they've got full transparency and the ability to see what they're being paid and how they're being paid, and communication, and then building a team that treats everyone with respect, and brings them into the fold, which is what we're about. The IT Army brand and our Wolf avatar. It's all about people belonging to something, the brother, the sister, the wolf that hunts together, the pack that we feed together, we live together. And it's a very important part of bringing in people that especially not full time with you. They've got to feel that they belong to a movement, to something that's changing the world. And I truly believe that. I think that, when in COVID we've seen what we did, and we threw work over to someone in a third world country, and literally that's all they had. Very powerful.
What do you see as the biggest? I mean, we've talked about
Yeah.
some things that we think will have an impact in terms of a trend in the industry. What do you see? Do you see it as being able to tap into the global marketplace more effectively for really top level talent? I mean, I mean, obviously AI is a big trend, but what are some of the
Yeah.
trends that you think will be the most impactful, maybe as it relates to ITRM and your business, but even overall in terms of the IT landscape?
Yeah, I think that if you look at the way that, and I'm going to say, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, human capital
Mm-hmm.
is moving, and what people demand from their daily lives, as far as, and it's been driven by macro economic, so war, COVID as well. I think that's a big driver.
Mm-hmm.
So people have to do a lot more to earn the dollar that they would have earned 10 years ago. That's a big thing. So they need to look at careers or impact that drives the right sort of value for their time. And that's a big thing. So that's a big trend. So if I'm going to do $80 an hour, then it must be worth $80 an hour. It can't be worth $30 an hour. And that means that, that's why full-time employment for a lot of them is like, I'd rather work 3 or 4 days and I get the same value as I would do in a 5-day period. And there's a big movement towards that. And I've just seen, I was watching CNBC last night, and just about, the gig economy and independent consultants and contractors in the USA, and it's going like that again. So what's happening is that you're starting to see, that happen. And I was obviously looking at earnings calls for Lyft and Uber and all of that. I watch all of that all the time to see the attitude towards people that have their own businesses, and their way of thinking. So that's a big thing. I think AI is obviously a big player, but fundamentally, you've always, around the world, something's got to be plugged in and something's got to be unplugged. So you're going to need those people that can then facilitate that sort of engagement. AI will build marketing campaigns, it'll build websites, it'll do all of the stuff that, do some smart stuff around that. But fundamentally, when it comes to people that have to either shift or lift or move stuff, then there's always going to be that requirement. And in actual fact, there's an argument that it could increase because of the nature of home working or distributed technology or edge computing all around the world. So how do you support 10,000 people? How do you that where 60% of them are working from home offices, or it's logistically it's a nightmare. So I think that there is an argument that this trend will continue, and I think, yeah, but then there's the hunger for remote workers in AI, in data science, in all of this, and then how do you everyone's ITSM organizations like ServiceNow, where they've got to have 1 million developers within the next 4 years. How do you fill that void? Where do you find them? How do you manage them? How do you control them? And there's talent all around the world, and it's just about aggregating it using AI and products like that to actually help them find that work, and then plugging them in so that they can deliver
Do you think
on.
that will be the winning? I assume you would do in terms of aggregating talent. I mean, that's in there is a. I have a
Yeah.
friend, someone who I've come in contact through our business, that has something similar, that in
Yeah,
terms of on the US side over here, aggregating
yeah,
talent and basically being the connector between, the Fortune 1000 companies that are trying to grow and tap into that at a,
yeah.
at a high quality level. I mean,
Yeah, so I think our platform is the first version of that. Then you plug in AI, and then you can build virtual teams of people that bind to your culture based on their lifestyle, their technical capability, and culture to deliver for your organization. The biggest problem around doing that has always been big organizations' attitude to actually trust to deliver the right sort of culture and get the right outcome. And I think we're getting closer and closer. So what's happening is that they're going, well, and outsourcing and software development and stuff like that's nothing new. That's
right,
happened,
right.
and there's proper gaps in the delivery of that from a cultural perspective. Still, it hasn't 100% worked, but it has been very very successful. There's lots of organizations. I mean, Upwork is all about that, and they've done extremely well. So the right framework, the right structure, the right technology, the right culture, you get all of those things in line, then it will work. And that's and I think that's what's coming. I think there's going
What
to be a lot of that.
what do you see when you talk with prospects, and maybe even clients, but they probably get it at that point. But when you go out to the marketplace and talk about IT Army, what do you see as the most significant value that your firm can bring to these businesses? I know we've talked about some of the, the benefits, but what do you see as that significant value proposition? And more importantly, how do you communicate that, to prospects?
Yeah, I think in our vertical, because we're supplying the IT channel, they all have the same problem, and it's what I mentioned with CDW. The fact that you're a 15 billion, 16 billion pound or the dollar organization doesn't mean that you have every corner in the globe covered. You don't. You have massive gaps. So they had then when I was there, they had over 2,000 suppliers. So how do you sift through all the dross and find out who your best suppliers and KPIs, who's got those engineers, that skill sets? They literally sit there with spreadsheets or systems trying to work out. And it's a massive problem in one, getting through all of that data to find the right solution or individual to deliver that service. So that needs to be sorted out. And that's what I think we've created with our technology. Secondly, there's massive skills gaps in certain technology. And what will happen is that there's a bun fight for that capability. So if you're a great AI integrator consultant, your worth now is double what it was 18, 19 months ago, and everyone's scrumming for that same person. So how can you plug those gaps, and where can you find the talent? So there's a massive skills gap. And on the Nasdaq, there's over 2,000 technology
Mm-hmm.
organizations, and it's the largest, and all of them have the same problem. So and it moves from one technology to the other. It was blockchain, and then now it's AI, and now it's so in ITSM, and they all have the same issues around talent acquisition and finding the talent to deliver their solutions. And like I mentioned, ServiceNow needs 1 million developers. That's so. I mean, and then what is the strategy to get to that? I mean, they've got programs with all your major, I know in the US, some of the major universities, they're trying to find the best talent. They've got incubators all over the
Yeah.
place. So it's a massive problem, but it's not unsolvable. With the right structure, the right go-to-market strategy, the right technology, you can literally take advantage of what's going on in a global market space, and you can find talent anywhere in the world. That's why I talk about Africa, because it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
You can find the people, and I think that's what we've been able to do. We've been able to help organizations scale, find the right talent to deliver in all of these countries around the world, whether it's South America, Central America, North America, Europe, Africa, Asia Pac, and Australasia. We've been able to deliver across the globe, and we've been able to plug those 2,500 people into them, and with our operations team, and switch the lights on. And now they've got something to sell, something to go and talk to their customers about, and also take on competition that would have priced them out or didn't have
Right.
that scale. And that's the secret sauce. That's right. Well, Yeah, we've got a technology platform and we've got all the SaaS and people can copy that. But what's your defensible moat? Try and onboard 2,500 engineers, languages, culture, skill sets. Crack on. It's going to take you 6 years.
Yeah.
But what will happen? But that's and now we've got a process where it's so slick that we're having 50, 60 engineers, 70 engineers sign up with us a week to be vetted, and we're not even done any marketing, and that's only coming now.
Okay,
So
so
that's crazy. But
let's
yeah,
talk about the growth part, right? I mean, and you kind of touched on it in terms of what we see in the marketplace, that significant problems leave for us entrepreneurs. Think that's great. That means there's an opportunity there, right? And I know that your
yeah,
business, IT Army, has grown substantially. I'm sure that you've attracted investors. I believe I don't want to speak out
yeah.
of turn, but I believe you've taken on some investment, and so what is the growth mechanism for you? What does that look like? What are the challenges that you're experiencing? You're experiencing massive year over year growth, and then you start to get investors. How do you manage all of that, and what are the biggest challenges you think you face?
So any business that's growing is obviously operational expense. So I think that's the biggest thing, is keeping your bottom line honest. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the big thing. Many great companies have made profit but had cash flow problems. So we know, and they've gone bankrupt because of cash flow. So I think that for me has been the biggest learning curve, just around the challenges of doing that. Leveraging our technology not to increase OpEx. So that's, we built the technology so that we can get 10 times out of an individual without breaking them. That's very important, as opposed to, well, yeah. So, and I think that we've stressed that, and that's what the great thing about technology is. You can leverage uh, uh, the ability to actually manage and deliver your capability at a global level. So, any one day we're operating in 16 time zones, and we only need 4 or 5 people with all of those engineer visits.
Wow.
It's just nuts. So that is just, and it's not because they're working 24/7. They start and they deliver on a normal working day. So, goal one is to have the ability to create the foundation that can actually deliver at scale, and not just throw people at a problem. It's about utilizing technology in the right way, and that's why there's trepidation about AI and what it's going to do, but I think used in the right way, people must be people. They must communicate. They must love. They must hug. They must do whatever they need to do to get that human connection. And I think that's important, because that's what we're good at. We're really good at that. AI can't do that. So, I think, for us, it's all about utilizing the technology to scale our capability, improve on the things that we're bad at. So notifications, replies, things like that, follow-ups, all the stuff that humans forget. AI and our technology and machine learning or whatever else is there can really accentuate and help. And then we're good at, okay, let's go and have a beer, and we're off down to the pub.
What?
That's where relationships start and stop. And I think
Yeah.
it's, whether it's football, whether it's rugby, or whether
Yeah.
it's cricket, or whether it's we I think to a large extent we lost a lot of that. And I think that it really gives us a chance to really focus on being good at what we're good at, and that's what I'm excited about. I think we're going to get a lot of that back, and yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge. And then, as a startup, we're a scale up now. I think the lessons I've learned, there's lots of things we chase at the wrong time, and I think that's we spend money at the wrong thing. We worry about the things at
Shiny
the wrong time.
object theory kills all of
Tiny
us as
objects,
entrepreneurs, right? I mean, again, we have got such
yeah,
big ideas, and we've got some vision that goes all over the place, and it does make it
yeah,
challenging.
and we often chase the wrong thing, and we invest our time in the wrong thing. And I think that nowadays I really think about meetings. I really think about going abroad and what the outcome is going to be and what are we going to get out of it. And because taking a leader out of the business that's in a different time zone, sometimes it's more risk than it is necessarily, because they're better at home with their team than they are being abroad. So I mean, for me, that those are the sort of things that I think as a business we're really trying to focus on in 2024. That's what our outlook will be. Will we take on more investment? I think if our SaaS platform really takes off, I think it's going to demand it. It's interesting to see the uptake now. It's quite exciting. and the feedback we're getting, but it's still an unproven product. I mean, there's a great book, Crossing the Chasm. I don't know if you've read it.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, great book. It's about where you focus your initial market strategy and where you're going to push your product out at. And if you think about World War II, when the Americans and the British landed in Normandy, they didn't hit the whole of the coast. They chose some beaches. I mean, the Americans got one or two wrong. I don't know how that happened, but when you don't want to land at Omaha, you want to land at somewhere that's going to be a bit easier to get up. But I think that's all about and a business for us. We've crossed the chasm in the managed services, professional services business. We're doing a great job there. People trust us. They understand the brand. They know what we're about. We understand what our product is. We know who we are as a business. The SaaS is just starting that journey. So it's not cross the chasm. It's that market go-to-market strategy has been tested. We're literally getting into the landing craft. Now it's about hitting the right beach, the right customer with the right vertical. So executing against that. So otherwise, we'll just be turning around and going back.
Burn the boats. Burn the
Burn the
boats.
boats.
Yeah, and a lot of times let's stick with that analogy, or it wasn't an analogy; it's an example, right? In World War II,
Yeah.
Omaha wasn't the beach that the Americans targeted, right? But
they ended up there.
Right, and at that point,
Yeah.
what do you do, right? And
Yeah.
they essentially burned the boat.
They
Said,
climbed.
we're going to make the most of it. We're going to go, right? So,
Yeah.
I think that's the part two sometimes with go to market type of stuff. And we talk with our clients about it a lot too, in terms of like, hey, let's find the tip of the spear that we can make an entry point and then make our push, right? If we meet a significant amount of resistance, great, then we can check and recheck our strategy. But once you start making entry, then it's just, if you push, a lot of times it's amazing what a little elbow grease will do, right?
Yeah. And there's the key, elbow grease. Nothing like a bit of hard work. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And I think, some people get it lucky, but I look at the startup community and I look at the scale up community in the last 4 years, and it's been a bloodbath. With valuations decreasing and seasoned founders that have raised money over and over again and been followed by money because of a go-to-market strategy or a business model, but they haven't validated indeed the business model. They just believe in the founder. So I think we're going to come out now with companies need to make profit. Companies need to wash their own face. Companies, there's not going to be this. There might be a few Hail Marys while we've put 100 million in. You've driven no revenue, and now you're worth 200 or 300 million or 400 million. You've got to be able to sell your product, and you've got to make some money from it.
To be honest, or to be frank, I should say, I'm kind of looking forward to that, right? I mean, that's what business is about. It's about generating profit. It's the blocking and tackling, the fundamentals that it's good to get back to, right? I mean, it's just not capitalism isn't not about this readily available spigot of capital. It just comes in with its hopes and dreams that you can build it up into the next Uber or whatnot. But it's about building a business profitably, bootstrapping it to a degree when you do need investment capital to jump up to the next phase. Great, go out and get it, but to do it responsibly and to, you were talking about earlier, right? It's meant to, sometimes it's like that phased approach, right? I mean,
I think, bootstrapping, there's a lot to be said. It's your academy for success. It really does mean that you learn a lot about building a business, and you've got to suffer. You've got to take some hits. You've got to get back up again, and you've got to reiterate and learn from it. And I think it's very important. The fit ones will survive. Those will come through. It's a natural selection and it's much like being on the plains of the Serengeti. The fit ones carry on running. They cross that Mara River back and forth a few times, and they make it. And I think the startup world and building a business is very similar. I never look at any of these disasters. I look at 2007, 2008. I look at what we've done, what's happened with us in the war in Ukraine and the coronavirus. And I think, we've got to come out better than we were when we went in. And that's very important. Your business model will be tested. The resolve will be tested. If you survive, if you've got the right metrics, the right guts to hang in and deliver, then you'll be a better person when you come out. And I think that's the lessons that I've learned.
Entrepreneurs are some of the strongest individuals. I think part of it is because it's in our DNA. We get knocked down all the time, sometimes on a
Yeah,
daily basis, right? And the ability to just
yeah,
keep getting back up and keep in the
yeah,
fight.
yeah,
To me, that's, we talk about the elbow grease, we talk about the hard work, but sometimes it's that. It's not about,
yeah,
you
yeah,
work hard, the
yeah.
luck will follow, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just repetitive. And I think the young sales guys that I mentor and that come in here, and and I often say to them, it's not winning the deal that's the most important. It's the one you lose and how quickly you get up from it is the one that marks, because that's what will make you a success. Because if you really harbor the failure, I mean, I think the maximum time I actually am really angry about losing a deal is probably about half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm on to the next one.
Yeah.
And my wife says to me, well, that's not a great attribute, because we'll have an argument and you're done within half an hour. So it does manifest in other parts. Whereas she's moody for days. It's manifesting. It's manifesting itself but that's the way that I think about it. It's right. What's next? Let's move on. Let's get over it. What's done's done. You're not going to change unless there's some smart strategy you're going to come up that's going to turn things around. We can go back if there's a hole or a gap. And then I just say, just keep plugging away, because it'll happen. It'll work. And I think, for anything, those are some of the lessons I've learned in being in sales and building this business.
I've learned it too. I mean, again, if you're in
Yeah,
sales and you're an entrepreneur, you're going to fail more times than you're successful, right? I mean, I always
absolutely.
use the analogy of baseball over here in America,
Yeah,
right? I mean, the
with
Hall of Fame
basketball.
guys,
Yeah,
are batting, 300, right? And that's 3 out of 10. So if you look at
yeah,
that and say they're failing 7 out of 10 times, right? Like, but they're going to the Hall of Fame. It's just inevitable, right? Like, as business
yeah,
owners, as salespeople,
yeah,
you're, even from the marketing standpoint, we always tell clients, like, if I had the magic bullet in my bag, I'd pull it out and give it to you right now, but I don't. The
yeah,
only way we're
yeah,
going to get there is to test 10 things and see if 3 of
yeah,
them stick, and then scale the one up that we can as fast as possible.
yeah.
But
Exactly. That's you spot on. And it's like, Tiger Woods, 200 4-footers before he would go home. He had to sink them in a row or something ridiculous. And the same methodology in sales, same methodology in anything you do. Look at a pipeline call this morning, looked at their quotes and looked at the one guy and just said, look, you're a great guy and you've got great strategy and you've got good rapport, but, you're 30% lower on the number of quotes than anyone else. And I said, when it comes to it, I said, you'll probably nail, one or two more than the other person when it comes to volume. I said, but there's a gap. And when that gap happens, that's when you'll oscillate and you'll have your problem. So, and I think it's those sort of things that I try and instill in the team and help them in building a sustainable business, because at the end of the day, it's theirs as well. They're building a number for themselves. They make money from it. And I often try and talk about their brand and how important it is. It's not just about IT Army, it's your brand, it's the way that you carry yourself, the way you put yourself out, because you're not always going to work for IT Army, you're going to move somewhere else. And then what do you do then? So your brand is so important as an individual as it is as for the company. So I think, I try and prep the team for life after us as well. The lessons and all of the sorts of stuff from a mentorship perspective are very important.
I
So,
agree.
like, I look at a sales guy and I think, well, you've got 600 LinkedIn connections. And they go, well, I don't want to accept everyone. I go, well, okay. Well, when you broadcast, who do you think's going to see it? When you talk about stuff, who's going to see it? I said, just build your brand.
That's probably the one
So,
thing I talk
yeah,
to young young folks, inexperienced, right?
yeah,
Again, being at this point in the career, I can at least have the luxury of hindsight and say, boy, I wish I did this. And even if you just take a sliver of this advice I'm giving you, but to build your brand, and that can
yeah,
involve a lot of different things. It can involve podcasts, it can involve
yeah,
posting,
absolutely. Yeah,
it can involve a
yeah,
lot of things, but your brand will carry on throughout your career. And it's sort of
yeah,
like it's tied to reputation and stuff, but
yeah,
it's not always the smart. Clearly, I've got this podcast, so it's not the smartest guys who are doing this. It's just the ones that go out to the marketplace and are willing to share their thoughts and insight. and
Yeah.
then be looked at as someone of influence in their market. And it's just so
Yeah.
important. That's kind of what I tell a lot of
Yeah,
folks
and I
today.
think the biggest message is that people that like you aren't just going to stop liking you because you've moved and changed the business. They carry on liking you. They have a connection. That's how they connected with you in the first place. So that's an important thing. So the trick is to get lots of them liking you, and then you can then through your network you can build up businesses, you can build up reputation, you can do all sorts of stuff from a content perspective. So I think, and even those that are a bit quieter and a bit more reflective and think it's the loud sales guy out there. It's not necessarily,
Mm-mm.
because people buy from people, and people that are like you gravitate towards you. So and it's just about really understanding that, and then often, like, there was quite a quiet CEO of an organization. He was quite withdrawn, and quite, very reflective. And then we had me and one of the other top sales guys, and we were just too dominant. I was actually thinking in that meeting, I was thinking, this is not going that well, because Chris is phenomenal, and he's great at his doing, but the two of us on the phone were horrific. Like, it was, and I said to him, we've got to be careful, because the next time I'm on a call with you, because you're such a strong character, the two of us
Too
together,
much alpha, too much energy.
too much alpha. And I said, that was, and he said, really, did you think it? So I said, yeah, I do think that. And I think that, next time, if when you have the call and you suss out the personality, rather, I won't jump on, or I'll just shut up and just, because I spoke too much. But anyway, I think, those sorts of things are important. Yeah.
And you took the words. I literally was going to say, we talk about it even with our firm a lot. People do business with people. We say it
Yeah.
all the time, and it's true. It is true,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of folks that do what we do out in the marketplace. We're not the only ones that have cornered the market. We don't, it's not like we have the Facebook or Uber, although ITU Army may end up being the Uber
Yeah.
for talent, but we're not. And people do business with people, and that
Yeah.
ability to make those connections in a way is so important, and can
Yeah.
be levered throughout the rest of your career. And I think
Yeah.
it's just so important. But before
Yeah.
we go here, I want to ask, you clearly look like a fun guy that loves doing what you do. What is it that you enjoy the most about it? So much comes out from you, but what is it that, if you reflect back, you go home, or, you take a week off, or,
Yeah.
reflecting on it, what is it that charges you?
It's
What is it
certainly
you
not
enjoy?
making. It's certainly not making money. I mean, look, I'm passionate about being successful and building something, and often, the motivational piece. I spoke about this before. What is motivation? And I truly believe that there are three things. One is the carbohydrates. It's the fast cars. It's the nice houses, and that only lasts a short time. Then you've got, what's the next bit of motivation? And that is, your family, your friends. Can you build something where they can enjoy part of that success with you? So whether it's a beach house or a lake house, or going somewhere smart, taking them on holiday with you, and then really enjoying your success. And I think, or putting your niece and nephew through university, or doing something like that they don't have the means to be able to, I think that's quite cool. And I think experiencing life like that is a great thing. And I think the last is what are you doing that's really affecting people in general? What good are you doing? And I think that if you look at the Nelson Mandelas, if you look at the Gandhis, if they weren't wealthy people, but they had billions of people following them. And that's the power of motivation. And I think, for me at this stage, it's about seeing people develop, and giving people opportunity. And it's interesting to see how my attitude has changed in this business, because if I empower people to develop, then I don't need to look after them. I don't need to chase them every day. And I don't need to, because they do it themselves. I'm motivated to actually become something that's different. And when you get the feedback, oh, you've changed my life, you've given me the opportunity, I've progressed with you, that is the most powerful
Have
thing
you
that I
found
can
that over time that's kind of changed maybe your
change
look, and that
completely.
what you
Absolutely.
thought was important? Maybe that's what you're telling me right now, but that's what I sense even when you're talking about that, to where it's like what you thought was
Yeah.
important, then all of a sudden you have that one
Yeah.
person that comes to you and says, you changed my
Yeah.
life, literally, and mean
Well,
it, and you're like, oh my goodness, like this is
yeah. And that's a big responsibility in the right way, and I think, I spoke about CDW Cowboy days. I mean, we partied hard. We go to Omnia in Vegas. We'd have bottles of champagne coming out of the ceiling. And
great
I
place.
thought,
Love
this
that
is
place.
life.
Omni's great. Yeah.
And I thought this was life, and for a stage, and naturally, the shelf life of that sort of thing is very short until you actually reflect and look at the meaning in your life and what you're doing. And maybe it's because we now middle aged, maybe not, but I think that the power that we have within this business to do some good is astronomical, and that's what really gets me up. That's what really motivates me. The money will come. That's a byproduct.
Mm-hmm.
You're really good at what you do and you love what you do, money will follow. It's not something that you should chase. So I think that for me is the most enjoyable thing. And then seeing their families grow and seeing how they all are prospering and the opportunity that we've given to people, that's the most amazing thing.
Well, you know how much I enjoy our conversations, obviously. So the only thing I'm going to
Hopefully
ask
many
is,
more things.
yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I hope that
Yeah.
I can have you back, and again, just see even at the very least to see the progress of IT Army and
Yeah.
to have these discussions. But as you know, I love having our conversations, and so that's the only thing I ask because I want to get you back on the podcasting. But
No, absolutely. Anytime. Obviously it's been great chatting to you. I've loved every minute, even the catch up beforehand. It was really entertaining. And hopefully, when I'm in the States in the near future, a, a beer. And
people do business with people, and nothing more
yeah,
I like better
absolutely
than to having conversations and doing those so over beer. There's nothing better.
fantastic.
So
Yeah,
good. Well, Brett,
brilliant.
I appreciate you coming on the Grow IT podcast, and we will look forward to having you on the next one.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.